Okay, so your wine's in barrel and we've sent you an email saying, do you know what, we'd really like to get it into bottle, and how about next Thursday? So what's going to happen is that we're going to take the wine from the barrel, gently under gravity move it into a 300 litre topping tank which has got a floating lid that floats on top of it. We're going to be tasting it at that time, and then we might find that the wine it's a little bit raw, or it's got some edges or some tannin, particularly for red wine, that the tannins are a bit coarse and aggressive. Under that sort of a scenario, we would take a sample of the wine and we would sit in the laboratory and maybe do a little fining trial, which is the addition of an agent that will take away some of that coarse tannin. Usually it's things like skim milk powder or egg white, and they've been used for thousands of years, but they're proteinaceous fining agents. What they are is basically protein chains. We add it to the barrel or to the tank, and it settles totally to the bottom of the barrel. What that does is that it softens the wine, takes away that edge, that roughness and that rawness, and it may be 1 egg white per barrel, or 2 or 3 or 4. 1 to 2 egg whites per barrel is a standard addition for quite a tannic wine. 3 to 4 is a very tannic wine where you, the client, wants to soften it off to make it more fruit forward, and maybe the oak has become a little bit too large. Generally through our tastings throughout the year we'll be able to match that. So not very many of our wines do get fining, unless it's the case of a white wine. White wine requires 2 types of fining. Number one, there is a bentonite addition which provides us with protein fining. White wines have protein in them, and because you can see through a white wine, if we don't remove that protein, and bentonite, which is a very, very fine but very specialised clay, we add that to the wine and it settles totally as well. And while it's settling, it will actually take the protein with it. If we don't add bentonite, there is a possibility that 4 or 5 or 6 months down the track, the wine will become very finely hazy. And that haze will be from very fine, small protein chains that have been floating around, and as they get older, and it's actually called light shock, as light it joins these two together, and as these chains get bigger, you can start to see them, and they do drop out. The second addition that we do is if there's a little bit too much tannin. Maybe the grapes, if it's a Viognier or a Chardonnay, picked up a little bit too much skin tannin, the oak is a little bit raw, we may use other fining agents, again, skim milk or isinglass, which is actually a very concentrated form of protein. We might add that to the wine, and again, it settles to the bottom, but it does take away that phenolic finish. As a client, you'll be tasting your wines and you'll get to see them. Generally, maybe 2 or 3% of our wines do require fining, but we're pretty well on top of most of them. Whites, of course, as I said, best to add bentonite if you don't want them to go hazy later on in the bottle.